Hello, Marusha, and welcome to the Writing with Purpose podcast. I'm very excited that you're here with me this morning. Thank you.
Hi, Anna. Thrilled to be here. Thank you for inviting.
More than welcome. So, Marusha, you're a journaling guide, an intuitive book writing mentor, and founder of the Girls Who Write platform, where you host various writing retreats, workshops, online groups. So, first of all, if I could ask you, if you could share a little bit with me and the listeners as to what led you to start Girls Who Write.
Right. That's a great question. Well, actually, I've been writing with women and working with women all my life, but without realizing it really. My background is in journalism, not journaling. And I was working in all the big magazines such as Grazia or Harper's Bazaar, which is essentially ladies' magazines.
Yeah.
And I've been writing a column for these magazines for women. It was always tweaked around female experiences, traveling, solo traveling, adventures, and of course, I was speaking in my girl's voice, addressing to my readers, which were females. So I didn't realize that until my life in Bali brought me to a tarot reader, which was, things that we used to do living there, going to all sorts of healers and mediums. And I was at the crossroad of my life, getting divorced and considering to move somewhere else. And that lady, who was absolutely amazing, by the way, she pulled a card and she said, well, a few cards. And she said, well, I see your future and you should be working with women and you should move to the city, which is sunny. It's in Europe, it has sea and has mountains, and you should focus on working with women. Essentially, that's where you will be of use and that's your destiny. And I was like, wow. And then I said to myself, well, I've actually been doing that for many years already. I
Mm.
just probably have to, focus on phrasing it right. But it still took me a few years to understand that this is my primary audience. And I enjoy working with women so much because well, I realized that once we're gathered together in a circle and we share our stories without any male participants, the stories change, and they become so raw and they become so honest, and we have nothing to be ashamed of. And we're also not trying to act nice and, I don't know, impress anyone. And women in a small, intimate circle, they're just amazing. It just amazes me every time how much we have to say and how supportive we are to each other. So yeah, that became my main focus of work.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think you're right. Just to have a group of women together in the same room, you say about the raw story and not having to impress and also not having to because we're a lot of women are people pleasers, aren't we? We don't want to say the wrong thing to, upset somebody. So we might actually hold back if there's people in the room that we feel as though we might be treading on some toes or so. Yeah, just to have everybody together and being completely honest. And I think that's a key word with journaling, isn't it? It's that honesty. It's making sure that you
Yeah.
ask those questions, go a little bit deeper to, yeah, bring out, well, where is this really coming from?
Yes. Yes, and of course, many stories are connected with men, with our fathers or husbands or boyfriends or sons. And if there's a man in the room, sometimes it's hard to reveal your real feelings and experiences. What was it for you? But however, I had amazing experiences with mixed groups as well, when the guys open up because they see how honest the women around him are. And they realize that, well, with their male circle they don't have this honesty because, well, guys talk in a different way. They're like, okay, what's up, blah, blah, blah. It's more, I don't know, masculine maybe
Yeah,
in a I'm not sure how to phrase it right. There's no judgment, it's just different.
yeah.
So I remember we had a Colombian guy in a circle of seven women from everywhere. And we were journaling and then we were sharing. And for the first hour, he was very silent. He was just observing and listening and sitting with this very serious face. And honestly, in my head, in my mind, I was thinking that he either judges us or he thinks that we're, I don't know, a bunch of, I don't know, chicken. But then he opened And he said, like, oh my God, never in my life I had an experience to talk about such things and to express your emotions so purely, so openly, because I work in sports. My rough conversation about, just our guy stuff. And this doesn't exist in my life. And we love him so much in the end of the workshop because he opened up about his mother and his sisters and everything that happened to him in his life. And it was beautiful.
Yeah, he'd found that space where he felt comfortable just to open up. It's probably a very therapeutic experience for him as well, if he'd not had a chance to, just even just voicing, writing it is very therapeutic, but voicing it as well. That's an
Absolutely.
amazing
And there was a
story.
moment when he started speaking about his mom, who was a solo mother, raising him and his brother without any help from their dad. And he started crying. He said, like, through this writing and through conversation with you guys, and all of us were women with children in the group, I think almost all of us. He said, I realized how much my mom did, how amazing, how brave she was raising up. And he cried and we cried because we saw it from the guy's perspective, from the little boy's perspective. It was beautiful and very
Yeah,
moving.
yeah.
I'm getting talking about it.
You create that space where people can, and this is a journaling technique, isn't it? From the perspective of, and he was able to almost step into his mum's shoes from you, other women collectively being there and supporting him with that. But yeah, it's a lovely story. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so yeah, and I wonder actually, you said your background was journalism and you'd worked for these magazines. My background is copywriting, so not journalism, but still writing. And I do wonder how many people that get into journaling, not just doing it personally, but want to share the benefits of it and, really spread the word of how beneficial it is. How many of us actually came from a writing background of some guys?
Many actually. And to be honest, my journaling path started through journalism because at some point I created a little writing course, which was not a creative writing, it was more like professional training. Um, because many people were asking me, how do you start writing for magazines? How do I start writing for any magazine or any media without the journalism training, without the diploma? And I was like, I know the answer. I know how to teach you how to write an article. Well, basically about anything that you know about, how
Yeah.
to structure. So I created a little course, but within this course, where everything was very professional oriented, there was one assignment that was, now I realized that it was a pure journaling assignment, but I didn't look at it this way. It was kind of a rewriting the story with the alternative ending and, well, basically talking about your traumatic event from the past in a positive way.
Yeah.
Let's put. And the response I started getting from my students were crazy because they were saying, like, oh my God, what is this? I never talked about this thing that happened to me when I was a child. And we were not talking about heavy trauma. We were speaking about small things. I don't know, like when I was 5, my dog died and this,
Yeah.
shaped me to be human that I am today. Something like that. And they started opening up and they wanted more. They were like, okay, but what do I do now with this piece of writing? Maybe, well, I actually something else came to my mind. What do I do with that? So from there, I think that was the turning point because I realized that there's something that interests me more than training people to write for media.
Yeah.
And I started exploring this path. And I realized that journaling was not something that I invented with these little prompts, but the whole thing, that there was an industry behind it. And I was absolutely astonished. I was like, wow, okay, let's dig into that.
Yeah.
So many people come to me, which might or might not be different from what they do for professional writing, right? Because copywriting has nothing to do with your authenticity. This is about meeting
Mm,
the needs of your client, right? And talking in a specific voice that you've been, well, asked for.
mm,
Also, writing for media normally doesn't have to do with you unless this is a personal essay or a column.
yeah.
Uh, yeah, so it's different. And creative writing as well. I mean, like if you're writing a novel, I think journaling can help you so much to establish the voice and the characters and the backgrounds. which makes a great novel, right?
Yeah, definitely. And that's, I was journaling before, but I've just completed a master's in creative writing and well-being. And from, I can't remember if it was the first module or the second module, but it was all about journaling and, yeah, using the journal for your own experiences, what you see in life, and then either transferring that to characters or using characters and bringing in these prompts and creating this background of the characters, your plots, and it's the word I'm looking for. Yeah, I can't remember what I was going to say.
No, but I can catch up here, and say that I specialize in nonfiction book writing, but I
Mm,
also believe if we talk about fiction, there's nothing 100% fictional, in creative writing. That any fiction is based on your own experiences, on the characters that you've met on the way. So any fictional character is a construct of things that you've observed in your life, right?
yeah.
Even if it's a extraterrestrial, like, I don't know, erotic alien fiction, still, the characters would have the traumas from the past that a thing or two about, right? Or
Mm.
something like that.
Yeah, you write from your experience or observation to start with, and it's interesting because I've interviewed a couple of authors on the podcast, and they say certain things, and I think, oh, there's an element of that in the book, and that's where that's come from. And I think when you realise that, and when you speak to people that have written not just a novel but anything, non-fiction, fiction, articles, essays, it helps you to get to know them even more and
Mhm.
see the power in bringing things out from yourself. And I think
Exactly.
that's journaling all along, isn't it? Could I ask you what then, Marusha, your go-to journaling techniques are
My
for maybe
favorite.
yourself and perhaps what you would teach as well?
Well, there's so many amazing tools to try if you've never tried journaling, or if you already think keeping a diary. You can make it a little bit more advanced with dialogue writing, right? When you can choose anyone as or anything as your um, partner in this dialogue. It can be, maybe you have some situation at work or in the family, or maybe, I don't know, you have questions to the universe. Why is this happening to me, right? And you write it in the form of a dialogue, letting it flow. And it's amazing. Some crazy things come out, and you surprise yourself. At first, it sounds silly, right? Like, okay, so what? I'm going to talk to the universe, asking why, I don't know, why I'm not being accepted to my dream job or something like that. But then things, unfold, and you unleash something in your subconsciousness, and you come with some amazing ideas. But that's not my favorite journaling technique. I actually love a very simple thing that is called one line a day. When you make a commitment with yourself and you write wherever, you can use your phone, it's actually the best way of doing it, just keeping the specific note in your phone and committing to writing just one line a day, one observation in a day, one thought, or whatever, you saw something beautiful on the street, and to keep it, well, at least for a month, but it would be amazing to keep it for longer, and don't skip it a day, and what's beautiful about that, well, I don't know, I'm in the age when time flies so
Mm,
fast, and also in a very fast-paced world in general. So months pass like this, especially months like January, for instance, they call it sometimes an empty month, because we're just coming out from this Christmas madness, and some people still celebrate, I don't know, Chinese New Year that's coming, like
yeah.
yeah, there's still lots of festive things going on, and we're still recovering from the festive mode. So January seems to be just fleeting, right? And then, bam, it's February already, and you're like, where the whole month has gone. So with my students now, we're doing this exercise, documenting January day by day with just one line a day, and it's amazing to look back and to see how many things have happened.
Yeah.
How not empty the days are, even if it's a very boring, very sad day when you just stay at home and you do nothing, sofa rotting and maybe just binge
So
watching.
formatting. I've not heard that before. That's great.
Yeah. there's still something that you've noticed, or thought that was right or whatever, even if it was nothing. It's lovely to look back and say like, oh wow, that day was amazing, because I did absolutely nothing and I loved it, for instance.
Yeah. And your body needed that. Your body or your mind needed that at the time as well.
Yeah, sometimes you don't realize that things happen for a reason, and you look back and you're like, wow, I really needed that day of nothingness. I
Yeah.
really needed that. I'm grateful that I had a chance to have it. This is a very simple, very approachable, the most approachable probably technique. You don't need any skills, any writing skills, because many people don't start journaling thinking that they need to be trained somehow in writing.
Mm.
This doesn't need any of that. You can write, I don't know, in any language, broken language, making mistakes, just, making every day count. And that's enough.
Yeah. Yeah, don't worry about spelling or grammar or making anything make sense. You don't even need to with that one line a day. And I think you're absolutely right for people just to start somewhere simple and then build from there. And I think if you're somebody that gets into journaling, that will be enough to hook you. At least if you're doing it for a month, it'll be enough to hook you to think, "Oh, what more can I get from it? Because this has been so therapeutic and so interesting to begin with. I've deepened my journaling practice quite a bit more this year. So I use a combination of my journal and a diary. So I write just I suppose multiple one-liners as to what's
Mm,
happened throughout the day, but then also I start my journal now with one or two words that
mm,
capture the day. And since the 1st of January, I've only had one negative word. And that day when I just was just grouchy all day. A few things happened, and I think I got out of bed the wrong way. And but it's interesting because it was the full moon day. So, and I've never really followed the cycles of the moon. So I'm interested now, what's going to happen on the next full moon day? Will I be the same? But you can learn so much about yourself, can't you? And I think you can take so much joy from what you've achieved by looking back over those one-liners. Gratitude is the same.
exactly. It's very easy to say, like, oh, it's been a shitty month. It's been cold. I've been miserable. I don't know, work-wise, it was boring on like, I don't know, whatever. But then you look back and you see all these amazing things that you've experienced or noticed. Even if you were out in the park and you saw like a tree blooming suddenly in the middle of the winter, and you wrote that down. It's well, of course, you will forget about that in a few days, maybe by the end of the very same day.
Yeah,
But then you look back and you're like, oh, that was a beautiful moment.
yeah. And yeah, capturing those moments, observing them, and just being curious about those moments, it can be very, very enriching.
Yeah. And also as an idea, what we're doing now with my students, we have a group, right? So everybody shares. Normally, journaling is not for sharing, but in this case, we share these entries unless it's something really personal. So if you want to try that and you don't have a specific group, maybe you can try it with a friend. I mean, I'm addressing not to you because you're already doing it, but for people who might be watching us, you can pick well, even with the best friends, because we we tend to assume so many things about the other person, like, oh, she has a beautiful life, joy. Or in the other hand, like maybe you think about this person as a very sad person in general, like, oh, she's always grumpy, or
Mm,
he's always busy. But then if you do this exercise and you share day-to-day liners, one-liners, you can actually, it's like a little window into the life of another person. And you see like, oh, it's not just that. It becomes three-dimensional or
yeah.
four-dimensional. There's a place for joy and for sorrow and for self questioning, and there's so many things going on with this
Mm,
particular person that I thought I knew so well.
yeah. Helps to really deepen that relationship if you do it with a best friend or a close friend. Yeah. I've never done that actually, shared it with somebody close. None of my close friends journal, um, unless they've not told me.
Mm. You know what? I found out that once you are in the journaling business and you keep saying journaling to your non-journaling friends, they start associating it with your job or something that you specifically do, and maybe they are not invited, or maybe that's not their thing. So you could play a trick with your non-journaling friends just by avoiding the word journaling altogether. If you want to invite them into this kind of practice, just phrase it differently. Say like, oh, I have a little fun thing to do with you. Want to join? Any wording other than journaling, which might sound too scary for some reason. Journaling
Mm,
might sound like, oh, you have to know what is it, you have to know how it's done,
yeah.
you can't be a pure beginner, right? Some people have this perception. I tricked my mom into this, by last summer. I never said like, okay, let's write a journal together, blah blah blah. I said like, how about, well, this is what I'm doing with my students. We were doing a different technique though. We were writing, we picked the month of June, and we were writing every day of June. We were writing a sweet memory from your childhood. Well, not bad memories. That was very specific, something good from your childhood memories. And the idea was to collect 30 childhood memories, summertime childhood memories, in this sort of a collection. And I invited my mom to join and to exchange with me her memories. So she wrote 30 memories of her childhood, summertime memories, and I did too. And we exchanged in the end of the month. It was beautiful.
Yeah.
There were so many insights for her as well. Because of course there were things that I did in my childhood that she has no idea about. Some little adventures that we went on with my friends, and stuff that I did when nobody saw me, stealing mom's creams and stuff like that. So she was like, oh, I had no idea.
Yeah, that's lovely because you're getting to know each other a little bit more.
Improved our relationship tremendously, because normally
Mm,
we talk about the mundane, like, okay, I don't know, the neighbor said this and that. I had chicken for dinner. How about you? And I'm not particularly interested in these kind of chats. With these prompts, we had a lot to talk about. It was
mm.
beautiful.
Yeah, and we were talking before we hit the record button, weren't we, about parents and grandparents and memories and how your mum had worn a teal coat with a hat and how from that era a lot of the photographs are in black and white, well, so you don't know what colour things are, but by having those conversations and using those kind of prompts, it helps to make the picture more colourful for you from their childhood.
Yeah, and it was even deeper because my mom was talking about the time when she was the little girl, and my grandmother, her mother, took her to the atelier where they were making the bespoke coat for her, and that was the final day when she was finally trying on this new coat. So my mom talks about watching her mother with these childhood eyes and seeing how beautiful she was wearing this teal coat with a
Ah,
giant teal button and a matching hat. So it says a lot about their relationship as well, how they
mm,
used to spend their days, what was the special occasion like back in the days, not going to the movies or to McDonald's, but
yeah,
taking you to the fitting, in the atelier. And that's so different time, and so
yeah.
beautiful.
It is beautiful. When if you were to be able to line those different generations up and compare those stories, you would see a real development of certain things, but also a loss of certain things, because I think before we the world that we live in now, there's just so much we can turn a corner and there's always something different for us to do. Whereas, but back 30, 40, 50 years. But then when you go back even further, there's so many small joys that you get out of the mundane things that would just pass you by today because there's so many other gleaming things trying to get your attention. But I think that kind of story is beautiful.
I'm hosting a retreat, a writing retreat this month in this beautiful 19th century manor house. And it still has the original furniture, this Marie Antoinette pink velvet or plush chairs and sofas and, tables. So we're having our writing sessions in the sitting room and in the ballroom. And I was thinking how amazing to be writing in a room where people used to write because that was the most exciting thing to do during the day. There was nothing else going on. So you were writing letters
Yeah.
and your journal. and expecting the visitors. And that's amazing. It's exactly what you're saying. For us now, writing is something that we do on top of other things.
Mm.
Well, days writing was the peak moment of the day, when you were sitting in your room and writing letters or receiving letters and opening them with a beautiful little knife. And that was the biggest joy of the day.
Yeah, there was a whole experience around the writing, then also the
Yes.
receiving, and then the sharing potentially afterwards. And now I think, in fact, that I'd copied something from your website. I think it's quite apt for me to just read this out because I loved it when I read it. And you've put in the era of endless doom scrolling and rapid fire texting, which is what writing and reading is now, isn't it? Where we create content to self-promote, chase likes, make sales, and gain the algorithm for visibility. Give yourself a gift of slowing down and writing with intention. Let your words flow freely. No need to fit a specific image, be nice, or worry about judgment. Just let your words be. And I think we've lost that a little bit. And you were describing there in the 19th century home in that room with all of the beautiful furniture, and they made a real day almost out of writing, and their words were just words and they were letting it be how they should be. And then flip that now with the rapid fire texting, it's almost I've just got to get this written to move on to the next thing. You just don't, you're not able to slow down with those words. So what you described there is such a beautiful picture.
I've been thinking about that a lot, with a friend of mine. We're friends since forever, and we're big fans of Jane Austen. So all this is our Roman Empire, as they say. For men, there's Roman Empire, and for women, it's the Jane Austen universe. And I offered her to start, communicating in this old language. Well, we speak Russian between ourselves. So I was like, how about we start speaking the Russian language of the 19th century, which
Hmm.
was, well, it's not that different, but the wording is different, and it sits within us, but we never use these words. So it takes a lot of time to actually put these words together. It sounds very funny. It's ridiculous. And for a week, we were communicating in this very, high society manner, It was so hard, but also we slowed down a lot, and we were thinking,
Yeah.
what am I saying actually? It's not like ha ha ha, you know, not this super fast texting, just exactly as you say, not to forget to reply because it's easier to reply right away, so you do it as fast as possible
Yeah.
to move on to the next one. So it took us some time to phrase, the phrase, and we were laughing, of course, because everything sounded absolutely crazy, but it was a beautiful experience.
Yeah. You were
And we
crafting the
were
words.
crafting. It was exhausting, but we were crafting. So coming back to the times when people wrote letters intentionally and kept their journal intentionally, it was the time when you couldn't really express yourself, really, even to your
Mm.
family members, right? Everybody was behaving and trying to keep the image of themselves. And yeah, that was the only way to actually let your thoughts out
Yeah.
and to figure out what kind of person you are. What is it that you think and feel? And that was, of course, top secret. Nobody could find this because
Yeah. I think people probably knew themselves if they were the ones that wrote in this way, they would know themselves very well and
yeah,
know what
that's what
they
we're trying to do these days with the journaling, right? We're trying
mm,
to know ourselves better because we're also so many people at the very same time. I keep telling this thing that happened to me just recently. I was in Istanbul and I entered the hammam, the public bath, and the receptionist lady, she was speaking English to me, but her English was not so sure. So she asked me upon arrival. She was like, "Ma'am, how many people are you today?" And I That's a beautiful question. I wish I knew how many people I am today. Seriously, I'm many people every day. And I sent, well, I rapid texted all my friends, of course, right away. This and that happened. How would you answer? How many people are you today? And everybody was like, oh, that's so funny. I'm so many women. I'm 5 people at once every day. So we're many people every day, let's face it.
mm,
And it would be lovely to explore which is our authentic self and if that exists, because that That's a big question. And what is our true self, or how many people are there, and what are their profiles? This is me, and this is also me. Well, surprisingly, but this is also me, and
Yeah.
I have to accept it.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And coming back to how you were describing your circles with the Girls That Write platform, the difference in how we are in that circle of women, and then how we are in a mixed group, how we might be with our partner or our parents, children. We are all different in those situations. We have multiple selves, multiple people every day, and journaling is a way to work out, well, who was I today, or who was I in that situation, why was that? And it really helps with self-awareness, exploring
And
yourself.
sharing in the circle is essential, because sometimes a woman that you've just met 2 days ago will read out something and express something about herself. And at first you're like, wow, that's so different. I'm not that kind of person. But then you keep thinking about it and you realize that it's a mirror, that you're actually that kind of person as well. But you've never had courage to say that out loud,
Yeah.
or maybe you want it badly and you were always avoiding it because you thought it was wrong until somebody said it. Like, I'm doing this and I'm fine. And you're like, oh, wow. Okay. And that's priceless.
Yeah, it is. So what's your first memory, Marusha, of writing or journaling? And also perhaps what's your favorite story as well, because sometimes these things encourage us to pick up the pen and write.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't remember the first journal entry, but I do remember my first journal. It was just a very uh, fat little notebook, and it didn't have any specific lock. So I had to invent my own lock, which I did, cutting plastic out of the Coca-Cola bottle and attaching it with a stapler and making it like holders, and then attaching
Ah.
the lock. Uh, and of course, I lost the key right away, so I couldn't open the lock. I managed to open it with the scissors, with the little scissors, and I've kept doing this that way. And I thought it was very smart, very secure, because there was no key, and only I knew how to break the lock. But I'm sure that somebody in my family knew that too. And well, that was a very typical notebook and a journal of a teenage girl who felt alone, who was in love all the time with different people, who couldn't obviously confess. It was all like, dear diary, today I fell in love with Alex. And then, 2 months later, you come back to this entry. I was like, who's Alex? Also, there was great sadness within me. I felt I was a rebellious teenager. I felt very misunderstood. I felt that I'm alone against the world. And because I did write that, I remember that very clearly. So now, raising a child that is almost a teenager, I can relate, I can feel what is he going through and what he will go through, most probably. So I think that helped a lot, to just keep this memory within me and to use it now that I'm an
Yeah.
adult. So yeah, I've been I'm an only child, and also I was very sheltered when I was a young teenager. I was not allowed to go to the discos. We lived in a big city, and it was dangerous, honestly. Also, it was the 90s. It was not really safe to roam around, so my parents kept me at home, and the only communication and like hangout tool was the telephone. So we were hanging on the telephone for hours and hours, and also the journal. So I was writing all my feelings and what I wanted to do in life and how mad I am, and that helped a lot. That was the outlet. And yeah, I have no idea where these journals are now, and I hope nobody will find them. But that was important.
Yeah, it's interesting because my dad, he goes to a lot of these house clearance where they empty a house and somebody that's died, and then they put them all in boxes, and there's furniture and there's antiquities and books and all sorts of things. And he did have a box once which had got a load of books in there from somebody that they weren't. They were more stories than journals, but I'm sure there was a lot of her expressing what she was going through in those. And yeah, I wonder how much of these things people see as a story of somebody's life. It might not be written as a memoir as such, but it's still a story of somebody's life. And it's fascinating to be able to look through these things, or how many just get, put away in the skip. It's
Yeah,
it's lovely and it's sad depending on which end you're on, I suppose.
yeah, totally.
I didn't keep a journal when I was younger. I kept off and on, I've always kept dream journals because I've always
Mm.
wanted to write fiction. I've always thought when you dream some wacky stuff, there's going to be some ideas in there for books. So I've kept dream journals off and on. The first time I remember keeping more of a proper journal was when I worked on cruise ships. Because I wrote down what happened throughout the
A
day,
great
where I'd
place to
been.
have an observation journal.
Yeah,
Oh
for
yeah.
sure. Yeah. And I worked on Disney Cruise Line. So, there was a lot of characters, but I didn't keep them. And I really kicked myself about that because even just now, 15, 20 years or so later, I could sit down and I could look through them. And I just, I get excited every time I talk about the years on the cruise ship. But to have those books which have encapsulated the experience in words is just, it brings them to life so much more than trying to pull the memories because it always changes every time you pull a memory, doesn't it? So to have the words at the time.
I was on the cruise ship once, and it was not like a proper cruise. It was more of a crossing. Well, it was a cruise on the Baltic Sea, so it was doing all the Scandinavian countries. It took only 3 days, and we went with a friend. And the amount of characters and idiotic situations and just ridiculous stuff that happened within these 3 days were so overwhelming. I wish I kept a journal, but it's still very much alive in my heart, and I retell these stories again and again. That's
Yeah.
why they're alive. But if I would write them down, that would make a great book, seriously.
Yeah, one of my ideas for a storybook is a murder on a cruise ship. Just because I've with working on one, I kind of know the ins and outs of, beyond the plushness of the areas where the guests are. So that's it. I have started it actually. I'm about 3 chapters into it, but it's on the shelf before I write the first one. But yeah,
Maybe you need to go on the research trip and book yourself a cruise.
yeah, yeah. All expenses paid from for the business.
Absolutely. It's
Yeah.
work. Somebody has to do it.
Yeah, no, definitely. I have thought about that, and I've thought about doing a solo one as well. So not going with, with the family, but just doing a solo one, so that then I could just sit and, as you say, observe the characters and all of the incidents that go on. And I mean, I love to people watch anyway. I find real joy out of people watching and just thinking, oh, why are they here, or why are they like that? And I always chuckle in the supermarket. I don't know if you see this, but you get older couples that have probably just fed up with each other by the time they've got to that stage of life, and the bickering at each other down the cereal aisle. And it's just, oh, why did you get to that stage? Or what caused that little bit of a conversation?
Once, but when I was still working as a travel editor for Harper's Bazaar, I had an amazing opportunity to be on the Orient Express train.
Oh, wow.
And so and we went from I think Bangkok to Singapore, if I remember correctly. And it was a fabulous trip, obviously, but also a germ for any writer, because every character, there were not many people because it's a very expensive journey. So all in all, I think we were 20. I was traveling for free. Nobody knew that. And I created with my husband, we were like, okay, we can't say that we're here for free because all the people are, so high profile. So we started inventing stories about ourselves, what are we doing? And then we were like, okay, how many people out there are inventing stories as well about themselves,
Yeah.
And
Mm.
everyone was a character. Seriously, we were expecting a murder anytime because of the, of the people who were there. It was just unbelievable. I was like, was there any casting before people are allowed to come on to buy the ticket? Because it's impossible that everyone who entered were like, wow, really, it's straight from the Agatha Christie fiction book.
Yeah. It's interesting you should say that when you think about how many programs are on the television these days that are these groups of people that have been put together. They say that you get picked at random, but I don't believe that for 1 second. You put these groups of people together so that there is conflict, so that there is, love interests, and yeah, it's straight out of an Agatha Christie book. Oh, fabulous. That's something on my bucket list.
Yeah.
So I didn't mention Marusha at the start that I met you because I attended the Barcelona Journaling Festival in November 2024, which you were one of the co-organisers. So how was that born? How did that come about? Because it was a fabulous experience, and I've already got the dates for this year in my diary.
Well, it all started with me having this crazy dream of bringing journaling specialists together because after a few years of being a journaling guide and journaling coach, I realized that as fascinating as it is, but it's also a kind of a lonely job, you know, basically you're one-on-one with people, or you're hosting groups, and you're always on the other end of the process, right? So I started speaking to some of the colleagues scattered around Europe, and everybody said the same, like, "Oh, I wish we could have this little industry event." And I was like, "Okay, well, maybe I can organize one in Barcelona because Barcelona is amazing." And then um, I got a newsletter from Kay Adams from Institute of Therapeutic Writing in the US, and it was a newsletter advertising a retreat that she was doing. And I was like, "Oh damn, I wish I could come, but Sedona in California is so far away, you know, and it's expensive. So there's no way I'm joining this retreat. Why nothing like this happens in Barcelona?" And then it was like, "Pam." An aha moment, and I wrote back to Kay, well, replying to the newsletter, which nobody normally does, right? Newsletter is normally no reply kind of thing.
Hmm.
So I wrote back saying like, "Hey, you don't know me, but I'm in Europe. I've been following you for a while. I use your books in my teaching, and would you be interested in coming to Spain one day?" And I absolutely didn't expect a reply, but she did reply. And we started talking, and she was like, "I haven't been in Europe since forever, and I would love to come." And I was like, "Okay, well, maybe this is the lead for our journaling hangout." And then I realized that there's so many people who would be interested who are not journaling guides, you know, who are just journalers, who are writing their little diaries every day, and I can introduce them to the big world of the international journaling, and that's just picked up, you know, because once we had Kay on board, I talked Oliver to join me, and I sold him this idea with just, you know, crazy eyes, and he was very well, he was not sure. He was like, "Okay, what are you talking about? Let's try." And then it was too late to look back, you know, because it was just rolling. People started
Yeah.
saying, "I'm coming, I'm coming." And it became an international event that we're doing again this year, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, it was fabulous. I got so much from it. I can't remember how I came across it. It was possibly one of Kay's newsletters because I'd been on her mailing list for quite some time through another email address. So I didn't frequently see the emails because it was an email address that I had to log into in order to read the emails. But yeah, yeah. So when I saw it, I thought, oh, this is affordable. I will pencil this in. And then I thought, no, I won't pencil it in. I will book it. So I booked the early bird, and I hesitated a little bit for the Sunday, which was the Meet the Speakers event. But I thought, no, I'm traveling. I'll probably never get a chance to meet anybody like this again. So I shall book the Sunday ticket as well. And then I convinced my partner to come along because it was about a week after his birthday. So I said, "Oh, I'll pay for you to come, and you will have to have a couple of days on your own." But he doesn't get time on his own. So I thought, he would appreciate that as well. So everything just seemed to fit into place. And yeah, I'd already read Megan Hayes' book because I came across that on Audible, and so I'd already listened to that. So I thought, great, that's two people. And then yeah, the speakers that you had and the workshops that were organised were just incredible, and it was great from a learning experience personally, but then also because this is something that for me, sort of sharing the benefits of journaling and wanting to hold my own workshops and things, it was great because I could see other techniques that had, how people were sharing things. And I love picture cards anyway. So the fact that Jackie used the picture cards, and Emily used picture cards as well, different takes on those. I just thought, yeah, this is all coming together. And I said to Oliver, because he was on the show a couple of weeks earlier, I was absolutely gutted when I got home. I was on a real downer for about 2 weeks because it was so I was so inspired, and then to come back and that you got the sunshine and the beach and everything. So I can't wait for this year.
Oh, imagine how sad were we, the organizers, once the party was over and everybody left, and we were like, oh, wait, where is everyone? We were so caught into the feeling that we're hosted, and they're amazing people to meet. So we can't wait either. What
Yeah.
was it? Can I ask you, what was your highlight from the whole festival?
Oh, do you know there were so many? I think meeting Kay would definitely be one highlight, Kay Adams, because I'd known of her for a while, and I kind of see her as being the sort of a modern guru in the journaling field, bringing it from that sort of scientific side of things as well, because she's a psychotherapist, isn't she, in her training as well? And she was, have I got it down? I've got her Journal to the Self book. I bought it second hand, so it's really battered, but it's full of my little sticky tape notes. But I actually really enjoyed all of Jackie's sessions as well, because I am big into nature. And when I'm outside in nature, that's for me, that's a creative flow. I can tap into that. And there's something about the energy of being outside. And particularly if I sit by a tree, then, my creativity flows. So I was really pleased that she emphasized that, because I thought I was a bit of a kind of loner from that point of view. But since I've started seeing that, a lot more books and things where people write from that approach by connecting with nature. So I think those are sort of two standout points, but just the whole atmosphere that you created and the people that were in the room, both people who were just coming from a personal journaling point of view, or people that were practicing it in some way. I think, the fact that you guys brought everybody together in that space was just incredible. That didn't really answer your question there, did it,
Yes,
Marusha?
no, you
Because
did. You did actually, you did, and yeah, I can relate so much. And also for me, that was one of the biggest highlights. That feeling that there are people who are feeling lonely in this process of thinking that they're weird. There's something off about them. That they're these introverts just loving to journal in their little notebook, all of them coming together and seeing with their own eyes that they're not alone, that they're plenty. We were so worried that, okay, everybody will be shy. We will have to, tiptoe around different, I don't know, personalities. But everyone was just like jumping on each other right away without knowing each other. That was beautiful to watch.
yeah,
And I've been struggling to explain for the whole year while we were getting the festival ready, um, to people who had no idea what journaling was. They were like, so journaling, what is it? And I was like, that's therapeutical writing, that's expressive writing. Still, I could see that people were not getting it.
mm,
And it was such a relief to be in the room full of people who are getting it, who know why are they there, what's going on, and seeing the benefits of it right away. So that was healing for me, after the whole year of explaining myself and feeling that, oh, again, I'm doing something very niche. It's not the first time in my life that I'm doing a very niche thing that only a handful of people understand, only to discover years later that it became mass, that now everyone is into that. So for me, it was lovely to see.
thank you very much for taking that bold step and going with your intuition and saying, yeah, there's something that we can do here.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
was scary. I tell you, scary because I've never done any event. I have never organized a big event like that. It was risky money wise, and also, what if? And there were so many what ifs, but all worked out just fine. And we're really hoping that this year is going to be bigger and better.
Oh, definitely. I'm sure that 99% of the people that attended before will attend again. And then, of course, I've been talking about it to loads of people So if we can all bring friends, family members, ultimately, the more people that know how this works and how the benefits that you get from it personally, the better. Because what you were saying there about journaling, people don't really understand what it is, and the language around it's a therapeutic word in itself is a little bit negative, I would say, even though it's meant to be positive, but that perception of going through therapy or something therapeutic can be a little bit negative.
It's going to be like, yeah, it sounds like you're sick and you need a treatment, right?
Yeah, yeah. And sometimes people don't want to go there.
No. And it was amazing actually to have some people who focus on joy journaling, such as Megan, right?
Mm.
That was my idea that we are not going to make it a heavy lifting kind of process, like we're going to dig into our traumas, we're going to do shadow work only. No, I wanted people to see that you can journal from the happy place,
Yeah.
and you can focus on gratitude if you would feel so. And there's so many techniques to elevate your mood and the overall perception of the world.
Mm.
It's
Yeah.
really important.
And just experiencing those different techniques, those different approaches, people then can have a go and work out what's best for them. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, it was a buffet of techniques and tools, and everybody could pick what they like. But the idea was
Yeah.
to try.
Yeah, that's a great analogy for it, a buffet of techniques. It really was
Yeah.
because you had the workshops and we could choose, didn't we, from three different workshops several times throughout both the days. And I think that worked really well. And also another thing that I thought was I booked the Sunday, if I'm honest, probably because I thought that would be the only time to meet the speakers.
Hmm.
But you set it up in a way that everybody was so accessible. So everybody was just mingling right from day one when we signed in and got the goodie bag, the tote bags, which was just amazing because quite often with these things, people aren't available to you. And particularly what I found with the writing community, journalists, in professional writers, journalists, and also authors as well. Everyone is so down to earth. You couldn't get a
Mm.
more kind of, Girl Friday, Boy Saturday, however you refer to it. Yeah.
We didn't expect that either. We didn't know what to expect. We felt like, okay, they wouldn't know. Well, I've never met Jackie in person. I've never met Megan in person. I've never met Kay in person. We didn't know. We didn't expect them to be so open, so eager to hang out, to chat with everyone. And of course, that has set the tone.
Yeah, that just it explains the journaling community. I think everybody wants to share, everybody's very open, and everybody just wants to help everybody else achieve the best that they can out of life.
To see people who joined us out of curiosity. They didn't know what to expect and they never journaled in their life. They didn't really understand what I was selling, but they came anyways and they were like, what is it? How come I've never been in this kind of community? How come I never knew that I could write and feel better about myself and also meet amazing people who do the same? It
Yeah.
was
So aside from the journaling festival then, what's next for you in 2005? How can people get involved with what you're doing? I'll share the website and all of the links in the show notes. But yeah, how can people approach you?
Well, there are many things going on, a part of the festival, which is in November. So before November, I'm focused on the Girls Who Write community, which will have multiple events. I mean, if you're in Barcelona or somewhere close in Spain, there are workshops that I host in the city or sometimes online. But there will be, well, the retreat that is happening now in the very beginning of February, it's already booked out. But there will be another one, I think, in the summer, and I also do the online journaling course called Naked Words that I do twice a year. And last time it was in December with all the journaling community joining. Festival community joining. It was beautiful. It was like an after party. So the
Yeah.
next one is in May, and I think spring is a fabulous time for the little journaling program. It only lasts 2 weeks, but it's daily writing, very affordable time-wise. Because my goal is to make you write every day for 15 minutes only. So it's one assignment, but also an online group that feels like you're there hanging out with other people. and everybody's sharing their writing too. I mean, it's not necessarily, but people do love to share what they wrote. And there are bits of storytelling, so it's not only personal writing. There are memories, there's some family stories, so it's beautiful to share. And yeah, that's happening in May for sure. And yeah, we'll try to take Girls Who Write on an exciting journey during the summer, but I'm still deciding where to. There is a big chance that it will be Greece, because once we went to Greece to the island, it was phenomenal. So maybe we're coming to Greece again, but I'm not sure.
Sounds fabulous. And I think one of your three key things on the website, one is adventure.
Yes, I think it all comes from my background as a travel, lifestyle and adventure writer, because that used to be my job, and also this is my personality. And I think that lots of writing can also, like personal writing, can come out when you experience things. So I take my people on adventures, be it the flea market hunting, but also wrapped around the storytelling, or like we would do something like sunrise journaling at the stand-up paddle boards, something like that, something that
Ah,
they're feeling first, And also I believe in writing through your body, when you experience something first and then the memories come to you, or like some new sensations, and you write from there. It's actually easier to tap in.
yeah, I think
So
that's
yeah.
something that people underestimate, is that connection between the mind and the body, but also what your body is telling you. Tap into those sensations, tap into when there's a bit of pain somewhere, or there's some tingling somewhere, or and what is that actually trying to tell you? Because that's all that we had when we first evolved, before we had language, before we had writing. We had no tech or anything like that. So the way that we were able to understand ourselves was just by the body.
Yes. And that's very powerful if you pay attention to the sensations, and you build this habit of connecting the sensation within your body, be it pain or not necessarily something bad, maybe some funny feeling, a fuzzy feeling inside. If you anchor it with the memory, and then you build the habit of writing it out, it can become an amazing journaling practice. Today I feel sore. Last time I felt that sore was when I was 15, training for, I don't know, something, a competition. And that brings the memory of being competitive, being a teenager, and having that friend who was this and that. And then you see how it rolls.
Yeah, that's interesting. You should say that, because I run a lot, and I fell over when I did quite a big race. I think it was the week after I got back from Barcelona, and it's been a little bit iffy ever since. But you got me thinking then, as something happened that I've perhaps forgotten for now, where I had an injury or something happened to that knee, because it's always the same knee. Yeah, need to do some digging there, I think.
You can write, I love this prompt. You can write a confession of the knee, and write a story from this knee's
I should.
perspective. Don't interrupt the knee talking. Let it
Mm,
say what it wanted to say since that accident, maybe.
yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'll try that, and then there'll be a few other niggles. I'll say, well, hey, what about me?
Yeah, well, share with me. I love this. Is one of my most favorite exercises.
Yeah, I will do. I'll let you know how that goes. So, okay, it's been fabulous to talk to you this morning. Thank you very much for sharing your experiences, and a whole host of techniques that people can go ahead and try. Obviously, people can connect with you and hopefully attend the festival this November. But yeah, thank you so much for your time and for sharing so much rich
Anna, thank you
information
so much.
from.
It's been a pleasure. I realized again that I love talking about journaling. It's so multidimensional. And yes, I could go on for 2 more hours for sure.
It's been fabulous. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to today's Writing with Purpose podcast. Having conversations with fellow writers or adventure enthusiasts brings two of my biggest loves in life together: writing and nature connection. I've been a copywriter and content creator for 23 years, but my passion is writing for well-being, and I'm on a mission to share the benefits that putting pen to paper has for personal wellness with as many people as possible. If you want to learn more about writing for your well-being and journaling techniques, please connect with me in my Facebook group, Journaling with Anna.